In the automotive world, data is pretty much the new engine. But here's the thing. It's also a massive vulnerability. So today, we're going to build a virtual fortress. And our blueprint? That's the TISAX framework, an absolutely critical standard for protecting the industry's most sensitive information. All right, let's get building.
It sounds like a pretty simple question, right? But believe me, the answer gets complicated fast. The entire modern car industry is built on teamwork, with data flying between hundreds of different partners. So how on earth do you make sure every single link in that chain is secure? Well, that is the core challenge we're tackling today.
Just think about it for a second. You've got everything from design prototypes and parts manifests to customer telematics. The modern car is literally a data center on wheels. Now, this explosion of data creates enormous value, for sure, but it also creates some serious risks. And that's exactly why the industry needed a unified, trusted standard.
And that standard is TISAX. You can think of it as the industry's big answer to the whole data security challenge. It's way more than just a rulebook. It's a shared framework that creates a common language for security across the entire supply chain.
Now, TISAX is a big fortress, so today we're zooming in on one specific wing, the data protection module. What's absolutely critical to understand here is that this isn't some standalone piece. To get that data protection label, you first have to master the core information security assessment. They really do work hand in hand.
So here's our blueprint for today's build. First, we're going to start with the foundation. That's the policies and people that form the bedrock of your security. Then we'll look at operations, how data actually moves around. And finally, we'll build the defenses, what you do when things inevitably go wrong. All right, let's dive into section 1, the foundation. In data protection, just like in construction, everything, and I mean everything, rests on getting your policies, roles, and people right from the very beginning.
So, the crucial point here is that this can't be some informal handshake deal. TISAX requires at least one formal data protection policy. It has to be created, it has to be regularly updated, and, this is the key part, it has to be officially approved by your organization's management. This shows everyone that data protection is a real top-level priority. Every fortress needs a commander, right? Someone with the authority and the responsibility to oversee all of its defenses. So who exactly holds that role in your organization?
Well, that commander is the Data Protection Officer, or DPO. For a lot of organizations under GDPR's Article 37, appointing a DPO isn't just a nice idea, it's actually a legal requirement. This person is the central point of command for your entire data protection strategy. And TISAX is very, very specific about this role. The DPO isn't just a title someone holds. No, they have real authority. They monitor compliance, they report directly to the top brass, and they have to get the resources they need. And get this, their contact info must be public. You know why that's so smart? It creates immediate, tangible transparency. It builds trust, not just with regulators, but with every single partner in your supply chain.
Of course, a commander is nothing without their troops, your employees. They're the front line of data defense. TISAX mandates that anyone who processes personal data has to be trained, has to be made aware of the risks, and has to formally sign a documented commitment to confidentiality that lasts even after they leave the company.
Okay, so with our foundation of policies and people solidly in place, we can move on to section 2, the operations. This is all about the daily reality of data, how you map its flow, how you manage it, and how you move it securely.
Let's be real, you can't protect what you don't know you have. It's as simple as that. That's why TISAX, taking its cue from GDPR, requires a formal register of processing activities. This thing is your map. It documents every single way your organization processes personal data, creating the accountability and transparency you need for real, effective control.
So once you've mapped out all your internal data flows, the next question is pretty obvious. Where does that data actually go? Data almost never stays in one place, so understanding its journey outside your walls is just as important. Data's journey often has multiple stops. It starts with your own internal processing. Then maybe it goes off to a subcontractor for some specific task. And in today's global economy, it could easily end up in a third country. Each one of these steps introduces new risks and demands its own unique safeguards.
And the safeguards for these transfers are totally different. For a subcontractor, you need a solid contract based on GDPR's Article 28. But sending data to a third country? Whoa, that raises the bar a lot. You now need sufficient guarantees, which often involves these complex transfer impact assessments. And that's basically a fancy way of saying you have to do a deep dive risk analysis to prove the data will stay just as safe abroad as it is at home.
Okay, on to our final section, number 3, the defenses. Because, let's face it, a fortress is only as good as its response to a threat. So let's look at how you handle both external requests and those internal security incidents.
It is so important to know the difference between these two events. A data subject request is a legal process where you're helping an individual exercise their rights. Your main objective is fulfillment. A data protection incident, on the other hand, is a breach. Your objective there is damage control and prevention. The actions you need to take are fundamentally different, and they are both extremely time-sensitive.
So, a strong defensive posture really just comes down to preparation. You need clear, documented procedures. Your team needs to be trained to spot an incident and know exactly who to call. The goal is always rapid, effective action that gives full support to the data controller.
So we've laid the foundation, we've mapped the operations, and we've built the defenses. So now in our final section, let's just step back, take a look at our finished fortress, and really understand the advantage of using the TISAX blueprint.
Ultimately, TISAX isn't just about passing an audit. It's about building a better system. By putting all these controls in place, you move way beyond simple compliance. You're creating a resilient data culture that builds deep, lasting trust with both your partners and your customers.
I think this quote really gets to the heart of the philosophy here. The TISAX framework makes sure that data protection is a core part of your design, not something you tack on at the end. It's proactive security, built in from the ground up. And that is the real business advantage. It's more effective, it's more efficient, and it builds a stronger, more secure supply chain from day one.
And that leaves us with one final question. We've built our fortress for today's data challenges. But as cars become fully autonomous data centers on wheels, what new walls are we going to need? I mean, what does the next frontier of automotive privacy even look like? That's a question the entire industry really needs to be thinking about. Thanks for exploring it with me today.